Good morning, good afternoon, good wherever you are. Good evening. I hope there are some participants from Asia. I think I have no idea where they are. Thank you very much for joining us today for the OGC GeoPose Summit. My name is Christine Perret. I'm co-chair with Steve Smith and Jean-Eric Vengi of actually, I think there's Jeremy Morley is also a co-chair of the OGC GeoPose Standards Working Group. And we're here today, I think in a form of celebration to bring together a lot of the things that we've been doing over the last couple of years and share those with as many people as possible and get as much input and feedback as we can. So this is a milestone for us. We created the summit as a place and a time to capture our status and to share with you a little bit of our future. So welcome. So speaking of, how do you get here? You don't get here alone. We want to thank the Metaverse Standards Forum, an industry organization that is advocating for interoperability in the metaverse. And many of us are active in the forums, working groups, in particular, one that pertains to augmented reality. It's the Real Virtual World Integration Working Group. Oh, don't you love that name? And so as part of the Metaverse Standards Forum, we have the privilege of having the assistance and the support of the staff, Emily Stearns, the executive director, Lisi Artson, who helped us with events, and Jeff Phillips, who's a marketing pro and always there to help us. So thank you to the Metaverse Standards Forum team. Thank you to Scott Simmons, chair of standards activities, chief standards guru from the OGC. And again, we are affiliated with the OGC through the GeoPose Standards Working Group. We have a great group of speakers. And so I fell short of putting all the logos on the slide. Here are their names. And I want to thank everybody who's done so much to prepare for our day here today. So who are we? It's not just the speakers. There are many people who registered. There are even people who didn't register. I got an email this morning saying, how do I get in? So there's a diverse group of people, but I don't want to emphasize solely those who are participating in real time, because one of our goals is to have a lot of material that over time will be experienced by many more people who have interest in our topic. We are global. We're globally distributed, approximately from what I've seen from the registration. There's interest all around the world. So what are we going to be talking about today? Well, we massage this through several iterations as a group. And I want to say that our emphasis really in the morning is about all the things that we know have been done with GeoPose, as well as with other standards. Want to run through very quickly, and that's unfortunate but true, quickly some of the examples that have been implemented and show you the wide range of things that can be done. Our friend Rob Smith, who I trust is in the meeting, will be running through some guidelines and recommendations that he's developed because he's implemented GeoPose in WebVMT and his own away team products and services. So he's got a lot of experience, and he's going to have a presentation, but then a lot of time for questions and discussions, trying to bubble up some of the concerns that people have when they start to implement GeoPose. We know some of those concerns, and that's where we're going to talk. Our friend Steve Smith, the architect of GeoPose, is going to be talking about what's next. I just skipped over a session. I didn't mean to skip over it. Regrets for that. We're going to have invited speakers talking about how GeoPose as a standard has impacted or maybe shortened the lifetime, the number of detours that other standards need to take in order to incorporate geospatial information in their standards. So this is the use of GeoPose in other standards. And I'm particularly excited. And I think this is a category that's going to expand in coming years. And that's one of our strategies for the adoption of GeoPose and the interoperability. So yeah, Steve will come back and tell us about, in the early afternoon, he'll tell us about what's next. This is pretty much a journey we've been on for the better part of 10 months, the whole of 2025. We still have hopes of putting many of these things, implementing them. It's a balance between what you want to see done and then testing and making sure that it's something that you can realize, that you can actually execute on. So Steve's done so much to blend together the work and the requirements from the Real Virtual World Integration Group to this.
And that's actually for me a big part of
why we're here.
What we'll get out of this is, so far we've taken the feedback and the things that we've learned from partners and random people as the next steps in GeoPose. But we hope that from this summit that we get more feedback that we can use right now.
Yeah, great. And then we're going to shoot in the afternoon with 2 examples of commercial implementations. One of the showcase examples is Augmented City that you'll hear about in the morning sessions. Due to the time zones and the fact that Augmented City is an Italian company, we're going to hear from Caterina during the showcase session, but she also belongs in the commercial implementations session. So keep that in mind. And again, I think in the commercial implementation session, we want to have a lot of discussion about, so does this bring commercial benefit? How does one leverage the use of standards for commercial purposes? And then if we're not too tired, no, then I hope we'll have a very exciting discussion session at the end to sort of wrap up and tie up all the loose ends that we introduce over the course of the day. So that's what we're going to be doing today. Again, I want to thank everybody who's here in person and remotely for your attention and good times. Thank you for all of those who have helped us to get here. If you are not familiar with either the OGC or the Metaverse Standards Forum, I hope that you will look into those, that you will join, participate. As I heard one person say, join the community. This is about helping one another, help ourselves, and go forward. So now I'm going to hand it over to Steve. Go, Steve. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, thanks, Christine, for the initiative to actually have the summit and making the pieces come together. Also to Scott for the work in getting a venue and food ideas and all those important things. And to Lisi and Emily from Metaverse Standards Forum for their part in making this connected through a wider audience. So the theme for me for today is really going to focus on the idea that the GeoPose thing, the idea is like a really simple thing, but it's actually has a lot to do with how human visual perception works and how human thinking about space works. So it's not just something that came from computer graphics and then we have a way to attach it to an Earth coordinate system, but it's in a way the language of communicating through a portal from 2D visual observations to 3D content. So Christine started off by criticizing the number of words on this slide. Um, um, and correctly so. And it actually reflects my way of making a presentation where I set up some empty slides. And then in the first slide, I just write notes to myself. This is what I want to talk about. And then I fill it out. And it's in a way like I didn't delete this slide when we were done, but actually it's intentionally here. So it's a more bulleted statement of what I've just said, which is to try to tease out the pose part of GeoPose, so location and orientation, from the attachment to an externally defined coordinate system or reference frame. So we call it GeoPose, but it's really taking a pose in the computer graphics sense, the camera and where it's pointed, and turning that into something that other content which is similarly equipped with a connection to a well-defined coordinate system or reference frame can be combined. So it's a mechanism not only for putting the content, so if you think in an AR sense of, say, putting some virtual content, some extra information in a view of the building you're looking at, it's also a mechanism for allowing you to integrate content from multiple sources. So if you think about, say, urban digital twins, you might break the content into separate small chunks, maybe buildings and roads and so on, have them in some repository somewhere. And if they're connected by a simple annotation with the GeoPose, then they can be integrated on the fly into any local coordinate system. So that's just point number 4 in this wordy slide. But I think it's an as yet little discussed and unexplored aspect, which I think will turn out to be important. This is a reminder slide, which describes one kind of a GeoPose. It's actually the simplest kind of GeoPose. We call it the basic GeoPose, which is tying a location in geographic coordinates to a local tangent plane coordinate system. We use north, east, and up. I actually later in the details in the afternoon will argue again. Well, I won't even have to argue because I know it's true. All physical world objects have a geographically anchored pose is not really quite right. So where are we today? We have GeoPose 1.0 standard. It describes 8 different standardization targets. The first 2, the basic yaw, pitch, and roll, and the basic quaternion. So the location in WGS84 coordinates, height relative to the WGS84 ellipsoid, and either yaw, pitch, and roll for the aeronautically inclined, or a quaternion for the more sciencey people, way of describing the orientation. The remaining targets are ones where it is more complex and requires a bigger investment in understanding the structure to know why you'd want to use a chain. So like my fingers are at the end of a chain of poses from my body here, for example, and a chain can represent that. A graph is just a more general representation of the relationship between poses. So I could have also a link to my knee, and you could know the relationship from my wrist to my knee, as useless as that might be. And then time series. So if you think about things that are moving and changing direction through time, that storing them as either a sequence or streaming them is a useful thing. So what's coming next? We learned a lot of things in OGC testbed 19 and 20 for that matter. Well, I didn't participate in that, but I think Rob Smith may talk a bit about it. We got a lot of feedback from developers and from other standards organizations. And when we started, we actually had a very narrow scope, and we threw out some things that we're now bringing back in. One big thing for me anyway is adding support for visual positioning, which I now think of more as support for visual perception or visual positioning. So if you see a scene, you understand where it's being observed from and the orientation, the direction of view. That is a broader and even more useful aspect of GeoPose. On the right, you'll see that we have some different entities, human-like forms seen from above. And it turns out that there are, when you say pose, you can mean a lot of different things. So, and I'll get into the all versus some things have a pose, I think now, because I think we have time. And okay, that the entity is pointed in some direction. Obviously, I have a location, but things that I see out there also have an orientation, which, unless I'm focused on them, is different from that idea of a pose. The thing that I'm looking at is also has a pose, and that thing that I'm looking at may actually be oriented to me or something else, and that is an additional kind of pose. So we'll talk a bit about that in the afternoon. So GeoPose is an interoperable hunk of data that lets you share geographically or otherwise well-defined position and orientation with someone else. It's small. It matches up with human perception, and it's got a simple mathematical representation and appears in multiple forms.